I'm now joined by Father Chijoke Azuawusiefe, who is a lecturer of religion and communication studies of the Catholic Institute of West Africa. He joins me to discuss the legacy of Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI. Thank you so much for joining us, Father Chijoke. Pope Benedict's death brings to an end the era of a pope and a former pope living side by side in the Vatican. An unprecedented situation which was brought about by Benedict's resignation almost a decade ago. What would you say are the distinct or striking features that would be remembered of the late Pope?
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me. I don't know if you hear me because my network here is not steady. But to answer your question, the memory, the legacy that Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI has left the Catholic Church with and the world with is actually his resignation, almost 10 years ago, when he realized that he didn't have the physical, the bodily energy required to do the work of the Pope. And he was someone who was elected to be in office for life, but he decided that wasn't worth hanging on to. So I think we'll remember him for that. But beyond that, we'll remember him as a Christian, the head of the church, the Catholic Church, who led a dignified and a defying and a simple life. Okay, his life, even though, like you said in the introduction, he was one of the greatest theologians of the 20th century, and he was the Pope, the head of the Catholic Church, but he led a simple life. He led a dignified life. He bore witness to his faith in Christ, towards promotion of the Catholic doctrine and the Catholic faith.
The funeral marked the first occasion in modern times that a pontiff presided over the funeral of his predecessor, because the late Pope didn't hold the office for life. Do you think his resignation had any impact on the Catholic Church?
Yes, I will have to say yes to that, and I think many people will agree. For the fact that his resignation was the first in 600 years, almost 600 years, for a pope to resign. What it did was that it opened the doors for that possibility to recur, in the future. Like Pope Francis mentioned that some days ago, that he already had some statements or some documents put in place to articulate how that might happen for him should that become necessary. So I think a tradition that hasn't happened, something that the church had in its tradition, but we haven't witnessed that in the last 600 years. The Pope Emeritus, Pope Benedict XVI, actualizing that, opened that door, that vista for the church, for those who will come after him, for the popes who will come after him to consider that possibility. And I think also it speaks to the humility that I mentioned earlier, his humility that I mentioned earlier, and obviously articulating what the purpose is and how it is for service, for the promotion of the faith and the doctrine of the Catholic Church.
Talking about Pope Benedict's resignation and the impact it had on the Catholic Church, there have also been concerns over the incumbent Pope's health. Pope Francis was brought out onto the dais in a wheelchair. Some are worried that he's sick and are hoping that he still has the strength to keep the church united. Do you think Pope Francis might follow Benedict's example and retire?
Sorry, could you repeat the question? I think because the network is bad, I didn't hear you very well over here. You were talking about the Pope Francis being brought out to the dais on a wheelchair. I didn't get the rest of the question.
Yes. I was actually saying, there have been concerns over the incumbent Pope's health. Talking about Pope Francis, he was actually brought out, just like you said, on the dais in a wheelchair. So some are worried over his task to continue to keep the Catholic Church united. Do you think Pope Francis might follow in Pope Benedict's, example and retire because of his, health concerns?
Well, it's possible. It's very possible that he could do that. Like I said, he has already mentioned a few recently that he has a document prepared just in case it will come to that. I think he's open. He will be open to that. I wouldn't see why he wouldn't if it comes to that again. He too is a pope that we know to be simple, to understand what it means to lead the people of God in that capacity as the pope. with all the humility and simplicity that requires. So I think he wouldn't budge to resign should it come to that, especially given that his health, like you mentioned, it's not as strong as he's not as strong as he used to be when he first assumed the office. So I wouldn't have a doubt that he too might want to do that. And it's good also that Pope Emeritus, Pope Benedict XVI, has set the precedent for that. So sure, if it comes to that, I would want to believe that Pope Francis would be open to towing that line.
Before I let you go, let's talk about Pope Benedict, one of his legacies and things that were actually said about him. What many leading figures have actually praised Benedict since his death. There has also been some sort of criticism, particularly by victims of sexual abuse by Catholic clergy, as they virtually ignore the burning problem of clergy sexual abuse during his tenure in office. How much tasks have there been for the current Pope to accomplish in terms of reforms? Yes, well, if you heard me from the beginning, I said a lot of people have actually showered encomium on the late Pope. And then some criticized him, particularly by victims of sexual abuse by Catholic clergy, as a virtually, according to them, ignore the burning problem of clergy sexual abuse during his tenure in office. I now asked, how much tasks have there been for the current Pope to accomplish in terms of reforms?
You said how much task did what happen, please?
How
much task did what?
The task for the current Pope, the task for the current Pope in terms of reforming the Catholic Church.
The reforming, all right. I think the Church has continued the reforming practices towards that which Pope Francis, Pope Emeritus, Pope Benedict XVI started. As the Pope, he was actually the first person to take real action towards disciplining those who were involved in that, priests, clergy who were involved in that, in the sexual abuse cases. And Pope Francis has continued with that. At the moment, actually, the Church has a policy of zero tolerance when it comes to clergy, priests, adults abusing minors in their care. So I think it's an ongoing reform. It's an ongoing reformation, if you may, that is happening in the Church, and the Church is continuing to educate. Okay, the priests, the clergy, those that work for the Church, to understand the importance of respecting the boundaries and actually of caring for the children that are entrusted to their care. So I think it is not something that the Church is going to relent on. It will be an ongoing reform, trying to bring people to understand the importance of that, and then actually to understand the damage that is done. That all of us, should be aware of and commit not to going back to that, to entrenching that damage or to perpetrating it.
It's actually a convenient place to actually end the conversation as regards this. We really appreciate your keenness of insight on this, Father Chijoke Azuawusiefe. Thank you so much. A lecturer of religion and communication studies of Catholic Institute of West Africa. Thank you very kindly. Thank you.